Hey guys, it's Will here, welcome back to the channel. Now today I'm going to be looking at the new Dynastic Codes. So the new Necron Codex has been out for a few days now, filming this on Monday, so it's been out 2-3 days. And yeah, the big new thing is Dynastic Codes. Previously all Necrons basically played the same. Now you can pick a Dynastic Code in the same way as a chapter tactic for your Space Marines and have your Necrons feel a bit different. So yeah, it's all cool. Obviously this is something they're doing with all the 40k armies, but with Necrons being an army that I played quite a bit in the past, haven't really played much in 7th, but have had a few games with them, I thought it'd be interesting to see if these are any good or not. So what I've done is I've compiled them into the order that I think from worst to best. So we're going to start off with the one that I think is probably the weakest, gives you the least benefit, and go all the way up to the one I think is the best. So without further ado, let's dive in and look at the codes. First up, we've got the Necron Dynasty. Now these guys are the standard Necron colour scheme that you tend to see most of the GW models painted as, and it's also Imhotep's Dynasty. These guys can treat any weapon as an assault weapon if they advance, and they can also move and fire heavy weapons without penalty as long as they didn't advance. So in theory this sounds pretty good. You know, you can make that advance and still fire your rapid fire weapon, albeit at the -1 penalty because it's treated as an assault weapon, and you don't have to worry about moving and firing your heavy weapons. But when you actually come down to break it down, who's really benefiting from this? Treating weapons as assault weapons when you advance. So most Necron weapons have a range of 24 inches anyway. Most Necrons have a move of 5. So you'd already need to be 30 inches away basically from the target to benefit from this. And then you're getting a -1 to hit, and you're outside of rapid fire range because we have a lot of rapid fire weapons in the Necron book. So is it really going to come up that often is what I'm thinking. You know, you deploy often 24 inches apart, so you'd step forward and you're already in range without needing to advance. And because they're being treated as assault 1 rather than rapid fire 1 on, say, your standard Gauze Flayer or Gauze Blaster, then if you're using this to try and get closer to get into rapid fire range, well, you're not going to get the rapid fire benefit. So I don't really see it being that sort of common a thing to actually come up. The other part, the moving and firing heavy weapons. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. There's a lot of things that could benefit from that. But when you actually start to break it down, actually a lot of them don't quite work. For example, the Triarch Stalker, that's got a heavy weapon on it that, you know, it's got a bit of short range as well. It could really do with moving up and firing that at full ballistic skill. But it's a Triarch unit, it doesn't benefit from Dynastic Codes. Destroyers, Monoliths, they've got heavy weapons. They already have their own built-in rules that allow them to move and fire without penalty. Doomsday Arc, that really wants to stay still anyway. Transdimensional Beamers on Wraiths, probably a little overcosted for what they do. Maybe that's the one thing that might really sort of give this dynasty a particular benefit from this is, you know, got this nice aggressive Wraith unit that's packing heavy weapons. Well, now they can move and fire them without penalty. But yeah, when you really start to break it down and who has a heavy weapon in the Necron book, a lot of the things that you'd think of as a heavy weapon are actually assault or already on a platform that allows them to move and fire. So move and fire at full ballistic skills. So while it looks cool in principle, I just don't see it coming up that often. And I think most people, once they've given it a few tries, probably aren't going to want to run with this one. Now, if you particularly want to use someone like Imhotep or Nemesaur Zandrak and Vanguard Oberon, or even, I believe, Orican the Diviner is Sortek Dynasty as well. If you want to use those characters, then I think that's when the Sortek Dynasty will be used to benefit from the characters, in the same way that people don't take Ultramarines for Ultramarine chapter tactics. They take Ultramarines because they want to run Robert Gulliman. So, yeah, not the best, but one I think will see use because of characters. The next dynasty is the Nephron Dynasty. Now, they have a dynastic code that allows them to always count as having rolled a 6 when they advance. So they're going to be getting around the board very quickly if they choose to advance. The problem with that is that for a lot of Necron weapons, advancing means you're not going to get to shoot them. They also have the benefit of being able to advance through solid objects, so they can move across terrain, across models, as if they weren't there, which can lead to some nice sort of ambush shenanigans, but because they're advancing, at best they're going to be -1 to hit with assault weapons, at worst they're just not going to be able to shoot or charge. So it's going to, on the turn they actually choose to benefit from this, it's going to cut down their actual overall effectiveness in the most part. Certain units, I think, that might like this, Tesla Immortals, you've just got so many shots there, and you keep a guy round with My Will Be Done to give them the +1 to hit, to counter the -1 to hit. They could be quite manoeuvrable under this. And assault units that have got a fair way to go to get to their target. Obviously they won't be charging the turn that they use this, but they can, you can use them to get into position, or units that perhaps have ended up out of position and are far away from being able to do anything, or just have to make a last-ditch charge to an objective. There's certainly things you can do with this. I just think compared to some of the other ones, it's not as good, but I can certainly see certain builds and play styles benefiting from this one. Then we've got the Nile Act Dynasty. These guys can reroll 1s to hit whenever they shoot, including Overwatch, as long as they didn't move in the preceding movement phase or disembark from a transport. So reroll 1s to hit is really powerful, especially if you've got a large unit benefiting from My Will Be Done to +1 to hit. They're essentially going to be hitting on 2s, rerolling the 1s. They've almost got perfect accuracy at that point. That sounds really strong. You do have to stand still though, which is going to pigeonhole this army into playing a very defensive gunline playstyle. Now, not to say that isn't effective, I think it is a strong way to play this, a static gunline, and most Necrons have the range to do it, 24 inches on most of your guns. You can always choose to move a unit up and then stand still next turn to gain the full benefit of this. So I think it's strong, but that sort of static gunline playstyle does have some disadvantages. Firstly, if you've got objectives to grab in the later part of the game, it can be tricky if your forces are all on the wrong side of the board. You might not have that much manoeuvrability. You could make up for that with certain extra manoeuvrable units in the force, maybe have a Veil of Darkness in there. There are certainly ways to move just odd units, but also it's a dull playstyle. And Sam did his Cadian Guard recently as a gunline, and he won most of his games, so he just didn't find them that fun to play. So while I think this is strong, I don't think many particularly casual gamers are going to want to pick this one up, because you're gunlining, and gunlining, although it works, it can get a bit dull after a while. The fourth dynasty on this list is the Novok Dynasty. These guys get reroll failed rolls to hit in the fight phase if they charged, were charged, or performed a heroic intervention. So this is your assault dynasty. And initially when I saw this, I was like, Necrons aren't really an assault army, is this going to be that good? But actually, when you look down the Necron sort of book, there's actually a lot of strong assault units in there. Lich Guard, anyone? Wraiths? Even flayed ones, I may not like the models, but they're good. They got some nice benefits. So yeah, certainly a very strong one that gives benefits to specific units. Now, it will change your play style. The other thing I can see people doing with this is running like Vanguard detachments or Outrider detachments with this code while sticking to another code for the main army. So say you've got an army that's got a lot of static shooting units and then maybe like an Outrider detachment of Wraiths, then Novok Dynasty for the Outrider, Nile Act for the gun line of infantry. There's some cool little tricks you can do if you start mixing up your dynasties, and that reroll all rolls to hit is really powerful, because it's it's not just ones, it's all your to hit rolls, and it doesn't matter if you were charged, if you did the charge, if you did a heroic intervention, it's all good. And certainly units like Wraiths and Lichguard now, with the boost that Wraiths got anyway, you're really only going to get one round of combat. They're going to just cut through most targets, especially if they're re-rolling to hit. And these guys also have a stratagem that allows them to have a second go at hitting in combat, basically a second round of attacks at the end of the phase. So we've got some potentially really strong tricks to play with this one, and one that I would seriously consider running. Finally, the dynasty that I think gets the greatest benefit is the Meffert dynasty, and this is a flat -1 to AP for all units firing within half range. So your warriors, if they get within 12 inches, -2 AP. Gauss Immortals or Gauss Immortals, -3 AP if they're within half range, which a lot of these guns are going to want to be anyway because they're going to be in rapid fire. Doesn't just affect your warriors' weapons, you know, even like your destroyers, you can go to -4 AP on them if they're in half range. And one of the units I think really benefits from this is anything with Tesla. You know, you tend to get 24-inch range on Tesla. If you get inside 12, you've finally got some AP on your Tesla weapons, which is really cool. Obviously, there is the limitation that you have to get close, but there are a few little tricks to do this. The Deceiver, for example, allows you to redeploy D3 units up to sort of within 12 inches of your opponent. Then you've got things like Night Scythes and Monoliths that can teleport guys forward, or the Veil of Darkness. One little trick, now I won't claim that this was my idea, I did steal this from someone else, but you could have, say, a couple of Night Scythes, put big units of, say, warriors in reserves in the back on the Tomb World. First turn, the Deceiver uses Grand Illusion to push up those Night Scythes. They are just outside of 12 inches from their opponent, and then when it's your turn, providing the Night Scythes haven't been shot down, there is certainly a risk to this, but as long as those scythes haven't been shot down, you can then disembark from the Night Scythes, which means you've got 3-inch disembark. I think you get move as well, but I will have to check how that works for Night Scythes. But you've certainly got 3-inch disembark, which is going to put you 9 inches out from your enemy. You're well within rapid fire range, so you're going like 2 shots per model. Say you've got 20 guys, 40 shots, hit on 3s, probably wounding on 4s. If you've got a Lord or an Overlord around, you can boost some of that. And then you've got the -2 AP. These can really start to tear into some stuff. Maybe not quite so effective against very lightly armoured forces, although they tend to hug cover, so, you know, +1 AP will cancel out the +1 armour for cover. And you are going to want to be aggressive with this, but I think 40k generally, 8th edition particularly, is a very aggressive game, so that's no bad thing. I can certainly see this one being a popular choice. And yeah, so that's it. The best dynastic code, I think, is the Meffert dynasty. Now, the final question that kind of needs answering here is which one I'm going to use. Now, I've got a little bit of a problem with my Necron army, that they are essentially painted in the Saltec Dynasty colour scheme. And as I've said here, the Saltec Dynasty is probably the weakest one of them, or certainly one that I don't feel I'm going to get much benefit from, which is a shame. But I think I've come up with a workaround for it. I mean, obviously you can just play them as whatever, but I like to have a fluff reason why something's going to work. Now, unlike, say, my Salamanders or my Biltan Eldar, where I'm really invested in the fluff and I'm going to play them as that, you know, whatever they are, you know, Biltan had virtually no... If Biltan had no benefit, I'd probably still run my Eldar as Biltan. With the Necrons, it was more just that was the colour scheme I chose. You know, it wasn't specifically for the fluff of the dynasty, because when I started painting these Necrons, they didn't have dynasties. They were just unthinking machines. So if you see here, although it's Saltec Dynasty, they all have these skull helmets rather than the standard metallic faceplates. And what I'm thinking here is that this is not actually the Celtic dynasty. It's a minor dynasty that has kind of become a vassal of the Celtic dynasty. So they use their sort of heraldry because they are representing the Celtic dynasty, but they're not really members of the Celtic dynasty. They are a smaller vassal dynasty, and therefore I can use whatever chapter tactics or Legion dynastic codes I want. And so I think I'm probably going to go Meffert. There's some very cool shenanigans I want to try. Maybe get myself a deceiver, shoot units up the board and have them get into rapid fire range on turn 1. I may have sort of the trick I mentioned of having a detachment like a Vanguard or Outrider detachment of Novak Dynasty to give me like a big assault element to the force. But I think that's how I'm going to get around the fact that they look like Celtic Dynasty without actually having to use Celtic Dynasty, because I just don't think it's that strong. I mean, if you are watching this video and you've come up with a way that Celtic Dynasty is brilliant and amazing and worth using, then you know, drop us a comment. I'm totally willing to hear what you guys think. Am I completely misreading this and getting the wrong end of the stick on how good some of these are? I don't know. Let me know. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.